So when people realised there was going to be this, this limit,
Yep.
what happened? What was when the realisation was clear amongst farmers? What happened in the catchment?
Initially there was disbelief, and then there was anger. You probably have to look at it as a grief process. I mean, these were farmers that were encouraged there not many years before, and it was their first crack at owning a farm through the ballot process. They all thought they were doing the right thing, and then suddenly their whole lives were changed. And when you're a farmer, you're talking about a business, you're talking about your home, and your farm is your retirement plan. So everything about their life was affected by this process. So we've had a lot of social scientists spend time analysing us and how we responded to it. And their view generally is you have to look at this as a grief process. You're taking away something that farmers had assumed was theirs. And so their response was, initially disbelief, then anger, then demotivation, and now there's grudging acceptance, and okay, we're going to have to work with this. To be honest, the fact that every other catchment in the country is facing the same issue makes us feel a little less lonely about the process.
You're ahead of the game.
Well, we're the first, we were the guinea pigs, and that's why it took so long.
What happened to land sales and land prices around that time when everyone realised that there was going to be a cap?
Well, between 2000 and I think it was 2009, Sharon and I were the only people to buy farmland in the catchment. We bought in 2004, knowing this process was happening, but we were the only people. So there was no other land sales. The price of land went through the floor.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we supported the establishment of the nitrogen trading market that was part of the legislation on the basis that if we couldn't sell our land and we couldn't get out of the catchment, if this whole thing became untenable, we could at least sell our nitrogen.
Yeah.
So, ironically, we supported a market instrument as part of the legislation, really out of desperation to start with.
Yeah. So things looked pretty dark probably when those limits came in. What difference did that make when you were then allowed to trade those limits?
Honestly, I think the difference started to impact when we'd finished the Environment Court process and everyone knew what the rules were going to be. And so we were just at that point working to make the implementation of those rules reasonable and workable. And there's still farmers in the catchment who think the whole thing sucks. But the bulk of farmers accept in a somewhat grudging way that this had to happen. The early adopters are actually moving on. So farmers are no different to any other subset of humanity, really. We respond in the same way to threats and challenges, and so we're just doing what people normally do when their lives are turned upside down. So yeah, it would be fair to say that the bulk of farmers in the catchment now have learnt to farm under a cap, and we can make it work. The true test, though, will be in 10 years' time. It became apparent that it might allow us some freedom to change our farming systems within the catchment under a total amount of N going into the lake from farming. You could have some people choosing to destock and sell their nitrogen credits, and other farmers who are wishing to intensify could buy those credits, and then so the total quantum of N going into the lake was static, but it shifted from farms under that nitrogen trading market. I understand that it's the only what they call non-point source or diffuse nitrogen trading market in the world. We decided early on that if it was going to work, it had to work for farmers in the catchment and it had to work for the lake. We didn't want financial wide boys coming in from Auckland or Wellington and buying up nitrogen credits and then manipulating the market for capital gain. So it's a managed market. What we've said is you can only own nitrogen credits or trade credits if you own land in the catchment.
Right, yeah.
So if anyone was considering this as a policy instrument or farmers were looking at it as one of their suite of options, think very carefully about the rules of engagement, if you like. And I'd have to say, speaking as a farmer, if you're getting close to your nitrogen limit but you still want to increase, you can stand in the market and buy nitrogen from someone else. The reality is that the only farmers that have done that has been a dairy farmer, because up until recently dairying was the only form of farming where you could get an economic return on your purchase of nitrogen. If I take off my farmer hat and put on my Lake Taupo Protection Trust hat, and that trust was set up to purchase the 20% nitrogen, or the 170 tonnes, we would not have achieved that goal if it hadn't been for the nitrogen market.
Right.
It would be fair to say that the trust, we had to buy 170 tonnes and we didn't have to get an economic return for it. We just had to buy it and shut it down to take it out of the lake.